right. Good morning, everybody. We'll go ahead and get started here. Exciting webinar today with Kate Wall from Wagner. I do want you guys to know that all of your microphones are muted. So if you have any questions, please type them in the chat box. We will answer questions a couple of times throughout the course of the presentation. Other than that, I'll go ahead and hand it over to Kate and appreciate everybody attending.
Thank you, James, and thank you everyone for joining the webinar this morning. We are very excited to talk a little bit about a new product that we just launched at NFPA a couple weeks ago. And we're also very excited because our partnership with Potter continues to grow, and we do have some exciting products that we're working on with them that we'll be talking about in the future. So during this presentation, we'll talk a little bit about the new product, and then towards the end, I'll be happy to talk a little bit about applications where these products are a great solution. So with that, we'll kick it off. I like to start off by talking a little bit about who Wagner is, because we are still relatively new in the US or North American market. We are very well established throughout the world. And our products have been installed in all different applications globally for well over 20, 30 years. The company actually has just celebrated its 50th anniversary this year, and now we have grown to over 800 employees worldwide. We are a family-owned business, which is not something you see very often anymore in the North American market. But Mr. Wagner, who started the company, is still working with us, and he is getting ready to transition the management of the company to his son, Torsten, who actually attended the NFPA show. So he does get involved in the business globally. We are a team of people of many engineers. So as people might think of German companies, majority of our employees are engineers in one way or another, or one form or another. I like to joke that I'm the only non-engineer. I have a business and marketing background. But what that leads to with all of these engineers in one group is a lot of innovation. And I think what you'll see as far as the newest product that we're launching, they really addressed and looked at the needs of the UL and the US and North American market, and built some really creative innovation into these products. So yeah, as much as we're new here, I like to say we're not new to the fire business. We are very well established. So I do know in this market, people don't like to take a risk on something new, and you can feel comfortable that the company that you're working with has many, many years of experience in this field. So they have made an investment in a location to support the U.S. market. Our offices are located outside of Chicago, Illinois, and that is also where we warehouse our products. So we do manufacture all of the products in our own factories in Germany, in Langenhagen, but then we do stock the products here. So when we're trying to fulfill orders for Potter, the orders are coming out of Chicago. So it's not like you have to wait for the product to come over from Germany and then you'll get it. We can typically ship out of our warehouse if we have it in stock in a couple days. And the company is very dedicated to warehousing the inventory that's needed to support the market. So they're willing to make the investments in inventory as the business grows to make sure our customers get product in a timely manner, which I do know is really a critical thing right now, because I'm getting a lot of inquiries about any products that would have longer than 8-week lead times. And the reasons why I think people are asking that question so often is that they do still have suppliers with those long lead times. It obviously has gotten dramatically better than when we were in COVID, but I think some companies, are still running a little bit behind. So we're trying to make sure that, you don't have to worry about these long lead times and can get product in a timely manner. I will say this is something that's a company initiative for our team that supports the UK market. They make a promise to their customers that they will get product in 48 hours. So I would love to make that same promise. However, the US is a little bigger country. And so I think, we try to get product within a week or so, if possible, which I think is a reasonable time frame to make deliveries, for this market. Okay, so what's new in aspirating smoke detection? So if you are familiar with aspirating smoke detectors, you know there has been a brand that's been on the market for a long time with products who have been out for a number of years now. We are not the only newer player in the US market. I sat on a panel a couple months ago where there was 5 brands of aspirating smoke detector companies represented, and that's a shift in the business because for many years it was really only one major player in the market, but now there's options. But we feel like with the technology, the history and the technology that we have in our products, we have a great solution. And one of the things that makes our solution great in our partnership with Potter is I think we have the same strategy on how we develop our products, and that's to make it simple and easy to use for the customer. And typically, if you have experience with aspirating smoke detection, that's not something you would say about these types of detectors. They tended to be more complicated, and you needed days of training to be able to use them or design them or install them, where you'll find that this is not true with our either our current product offering or our new product offering. So I do think the video gives a good visual of what's coming with this product. So that's why we like to show the video. I didn't mention this at the beginning, and if anyone has any questions throughout the presentation, feel free to put them in the chat. And James will just, when there's a pause, he can let me know that there's questions in the chat, and I'd be happy to answer them as we go along, just so that you don't have to wait until the end. So Titanus Rex is our next generation ASD product. We are planning to start shipping in late October, so it is not far off. We have passed all of our UL 7th and UL 8th testing. So that's the most important for anyone that has been around product development. The most important part in this market is making sure you get through all the UL tests. And if you're familiar with aspirating smoke detection, a few years ago, UL changed some of the tests that these products had to pass. That was during the UL 7th changes, and it made it much more difficult for these detectors to pass the test. So you may have seen over the last few years, some manufacturers discontinue some products that were not able to pass those tests. But these products, they have UL, they have ULC. Once we complete UL, we'll be able to take that documentation to FM. So we'll also have FM before too long. We get you the California State Fire Marshal's listing also. So we do try to make sure that we have all the listings for this in this market. Okay, so our current generation is modular in its design as well. So we like to say this is a new modular design. One of the things I like that we did change about the modularity is the components are more sealed, so there's less less room for error when you are installing them or wiring them up. Sometimes in the past, we had people connect the ribbon cables backwards or little errors like that when they'd be doing our installations. Now, with the new components, I feel like it is very clear how you would connect them, how you would wire to them. And the nice thing is all of these components snap into place. You don't even need a screwdriver to put them in or to take them out. We have left room in our housing for cards like we're going to be adding for the Potter connectivity that we'll have in the future. And the nice thing about our modularity is that you are only building in the technology that you need for your application. So you're not overburdening the cost of the detector with any technology that you don't need. So in this picture, if you see the two black boxes sitting next to each other, those are what we can call detector modules. And I like to say that that's like the brains of our unit. And in a future slide, we'll go through a little bit more detail about detector modules. But those detector modules are independent of each other. So it is like you have two detectors within one of our base units. And then each one of those detector modules goes out to a pipe network. So a lot of times we'll get asked, oh, how come you don't have a 4-pipe network system? Well, you ultimately can do 4 pipes by having 2 U-shaped pipe networks come out of each detector, a U-shaped pipe network come out of each of the 2 detector modules. So that's how we would cover a 4-pipe area. Or that is also how we would address if you were trying for retrofit or a conversion project. If there is 4 pipes out there, we would just design it as 2 coming back to the detector through the U-shape. It also makes it easy. The modularity also makes it easy to service the detector and for the long haul of the time it's installed, because if a component were to go bad, you are just switching out that one component. And again, all it takes is you get the new component, take out the old one, snap the new one into place, and you're good to go. That service can be done while the unit is powered up. So you don't have to worry about powering it down and then, reconfiguring or anything like that. Sorry. This is a new presentation. We just launched it at NFPA, so there are some graphics now. So that kind of gives you an overview of which of those components each of those components are. And with our modularity, you always need a base unit. You need at least 1 detector module. That's how you start to build it. And then you add on as needed, like the relay modules or a second detector module, or in the future, a networking module. So, okay, next slide. Okay, so our detector module. So we have developed, as I mentioned in the beginning, some new innovation and new technology. So the ASIC that's in this detector is brand new, and the technology that they've built into it has really optimized the algorithms that we have been using to eliminate false alarms. So one of the things that's always been true about aspirating smoke detection is that people have been concerned about using them because of their high sensitivity, that they're going to have false alarms. Well, we've built in a number of different technologies to be able to evaluate the particulate coming through the detector module to identify, does it have the profile of a fire particulate or is it dirt or dust? And really, that significantly cuts down in the chance of having any type of false alarm due to the sensitivity. The other key advantage that's come along with the new design of this detector module is how energy efficient it is. Our current products that are on the market are very energy efficient compared to others. However, we've dropped it even further. So our current generation that's been out runs about 200 to 250 milliamps per detector or per base unit. These new units can go, one of the units goes down to 90 milliamps. And I think on the high end, the most it can draw is 150 milliamps. So they're very energy efficient, which means you're going to need less power supplies on your designs. And then we have a new high-powered LED as part of the detector module, and that increases the sensitivity that we are able to offer in our detector module. If you're familiar with our current product offering, right now we have a medium sensitivity detector module and a high sensitivity detector module. And you choose, depending on your application, you could have two medium, you could have two high, or you could have one of each. Going forward with this new product offering, we will just have one detector module available for each of our units. And that detector module will do a full range of sensitivities from, a medium sensitivity all the way to very highly sensitive. So it makes it a little easier from an ordering perspective that you just need one detector module to choose from. And then you just choose, do you need one or do you need two? And then the next slide shows just how sensitive we can be. So we can go down to 0.0003 obscuration per meter. So this is, I think if you look at any specifications out there, this should meet any specification you've ever seen as far as how sensitive a detector needs to be. And really the sensitivity goes to, I don't know how often anyone sets it to that level of sensitivity. However, in the data center market, which is a very large market for these products, you do need to be very sensitive. So that's why we will now be able to meet all of the maximum sensitivity specifications that are out there. Okay, so here's a closer view of what the detector module looks like. And as I mentioned, we do have some new technology built in with the ASIC. James, if you click again, I think it'll have a pop, the cover will pop off and you can kind of see the inside. So one of the key design features when you design these detector modules is that you want to design it so that the airflow does not allow for any dust to build up in the chamber. So they have redesigned it to make it even more efficient in making sure that dust does not build up and minimize pressure loss. So that's also a critical design feature when you're looking at redesigning these. Something that is new in these detector modules compared to our existing ones is that we've added two filters actually, one where the airflow goes in and one where the airflow goes out. In our current generation of product, we only have external filters. Now we will have internal filters. So in cleaner environments, you will not need to add an external filter. One of the other big changes for this product offering is that we now have a detector module that will do 4 configurable alarm thresholds. So in our current generation, we could only do 3 per detector module. So if we needed to go to 4, we had to add that second detector module. Now we will be able to get to 4 with just 1 detector module and then 8 with 2. And as I mentioned, these detector modules can be installed when the system is up and running. So if you need to switch them out for any reason, you would be able to do that. Another big change, and we'll talk about it in a future slide, but if you are familiar with our current generation, on our current generation, you set the parameters of the detector through dip switches on the side of our detector module. So with our new detector module, no dip switches. We are going to a new software called Service Express, which will allow you to set the parameters for the system and then just upload it to the detector. So a little change. So our detector modules look different and they do operate a little differently, but the concept is still the same from our current generation. Logic Sense Plus. So Logic Sense is something we have also been talking about since we came to the market a few years ago. And the Logic Sense, as I like to describe it, is the algorithms and the intelligence that's built into that detector module to look at the particulate and be able to evaluate it in a sense to make sure, is it dirt or dust or is it fire particulate? So what they've done with the Logic Sense Plus is just improve the evaluation process, improve the algorithms used to make sure that we're even better at reducing false alarms. And if you've listened to me talk at any other presentations, I say in the European market, they say that we eliminate all false alarms. And in this market, I don't know that I want to go that far because you never know what could happen. But that's how confident the company is that our technology can distinguish between fire particulate and other kind of particulate that may come through the chamber. So this is the next step up in better technology from the logic sense that we've talked about for the last couple of years. And I mentioned the improved efficiencies, and James, if you click again, a couple more bullets will pop up. So we have, you can see ProSense is our current generation product that we typically recommend for elevator applications or for duct detector replacement or for areas where we typically would spot detectors may not be the best solution, high ceilings, high air volume areas. The ProSense is the product we currently recommend. So going forward, we'll be recommending our Rex 30 product. And you can see that we significantly reduced the current draw for these products. So I do believe, and if you click one more time, I think there is another bullet that will pop up about our fan efficiency. So it's both the efficiency that we're getting out of how the detector modules are designed, and then we also have optimized the airflow through our aspirator. And both of those combined has led to the low current draw for these new products. Also, I'd like to mention, so it says the quiet high-end fan. We used to have a silent version that was available for our current product offering. And that meant that it was a product that ran very quiet. If you've been around aspirating smoke detectors, some of them on the market are very loud when they're operating. And so we offered a silent version for if it was going to be installed in an application like a library or possibly a hospital or someplace where, or a church. We did have one where we installed it in the entrance of a church and they needed it to be very quiet. Now we no longer need a silent variation of our product. The standard product runs very quiet, so there's no need to offer an additional option in the product line. So just be aware that these products run very quiet compared to others on the market. Okay, so drift compensation versus absolute sensitivity. You may have heard, well, you probably are familiar with drift compensation. It's in a lot of the spot detectors that are on the market and has been for many, many years. We have drift compensation built into our products. We did in the current generation and we do in the new generation because we do believe that it helps with false alarms. It keeps the sensitivity of the detector consistent. So you may have heard over the years that no aspirating smoke detector should ever have drift compensation. Well, we've had it for like 20 years and our detectors work very well and are more stable than other products that have been tested on the market. So, the concept of drift compensation is the same, whether it's in a spot detector or an aspirating smoke detector, that as the background noise changes, you're keeping the constant fire detection sensitivity the same, no matter what that background noise is. So just another technology that we've built in to make our detectors as resistant to false alarms as possible. Okay, so as I mentioned when we were talking about the detector module, we now have internal filters. So we used to always recommend an external filter for our products. And now with the new product offering, we won't need to always offer the air filters. However, if you do need to add them, one change is that you do need to order a specific air filter if you're just going to do one pipe, and then you're going to have to order there's two different model numbers for a one pipe system and a two pipe system. And it has to do with the way the filters are configured to sit above the detector. So the nice thing about our filters was and is that they are very easy to service. You don't need any special training. You don't need to worry about having any certifications. It's basically just a box with some sponge components in it. So you just have to take the cover off, take the sponge components out, and put new sponge components back in and put the cover back on. So it's very easy to service our filters, which is true for our existing line of filters as well. I don't know what everyone thinks about the look of them. I feel like they look kind of big, but our engineering group has told me that they take up the same amount of space as our current generation of filters. For some reason, our current generation looks smaller. So if for some reason we needed to use our current generation of filters, our current generation of filters, the way you install them is next to each other, not on top of each other. And I don't know if that makes the difference on why it looks like it takes up a lot of space, but our base housing itself is a little taller than our existing products, but the width is the same. So you could take our old products off the wall and put this in its place and it will fit. It's just a little longer. Okay. So operating temperature range. This is one of the features that we are known for globally is our broad operating temperature range. So in our current generation, we have freezer models that are available. So again, you have like in our current generation, we have a standard model, a silent model, and a freezer model, depending on what your application is. Going forward, we will just have one standard model that will cover, as I mentioned, the silent as well as the freezer. So our standard model will be able to operate in negative 26 down to negative 26 Fahrenheit, and then all the way up to 140 degrees Fahrenheit. So what that allows for is that our detectors can sit right in the cold environments. So many of the other aspirating smoke detectors on the market are only listed to 32 degrees Fahrenheit. So that means that if they're going to protect a freezer environment, you have to warm the air by running additional pipe prior to getting to the detector so that the air coming in is not so cold. What that leads to, in my experience, has been condensation issues. And then they would recommend all different ways to address the condensation issues. But my experience had been that there still was a lot of issues. So when the detector sits right in the cold environment, you don't have to worry about those condensation issues. And it's in a very effective way to protect those types of applications. We are very active globally in the Cold Chain Alliance and other cold storage industry associations to help promote this as a good solution. So if you do any cold storage work, the companies that you're working with should be familiar with our products because they are used globally. So now you will not have to order a specific freezer version. You can just use the standard version for those applications. There are some accessories that are unique for cold storage that will not change from our current generation, but the detectors themselves, the standard has this broad operating temperature range. And even on the high end, 140 degrees Fahrenheit, we do see sometimes the need for these products to be used for like duct detector applications. And if you're in like Florida or Arizona or parts of California, where 140 degrees, you may have to be concerned with that high temperature. So again, you can use our standard model to be able to reach that high temperature. Okay, so this is kind of what the unit looks like when it's mounted on the wall. And hopefully you can see, I do think it looks like a very clean installation. And the inside of the detector, as I mentioned in the beginning, it's very clear how the connections need to be made and where the cards go. So I think it's going to make it very easy for people in the field to figure out exactly how these units need to be installed. So we did not have an integrated data logger in our current generation. If you wanted to store the events, you had to add a data logger card. So now that is part of the standard base unit. And it will store up to 20,000 events. And then if you are working on the detector, we have made it so that you can hang the detector cover off the hook. There's like some slots at the bottom of the base unit that you can hang the detector or the cover on. So that's just kind of a nice to have. I will say, because you can invert our detectors and mount the cover upright. So if you invert it, this configuration doesn't work because the slots you need to hang the detector will be at the top and not at the bottom. So that's what an actual install looks like. And here's a little closer version. And you can see there's some slots open. And actually, I think if you click again, James, there'll be more verbiage that comes through. The slots that reside in the lower right corner is where we have, the options to add in cards for partners like our partner Potter, to add in their modules. So we left that space specifically so that we'd be able to have an integrated solution with Potter in the future. So we do have the two internal filters, like I mentioned, that are already integrated. It's one in the inlet and one at the outlet. And you can see where they sit as far as how the orientation of the detector module is within the base unit. Yeah, so I mean, this is like the Germans like to keep mentioning that you can operate and work on this while it is all powered up. So the cards at the top right are relay cards. So if you need additional relays, that's where those cards would go. But right now, we don't, in the product offering, we don't have many other options other than relay cards to add on. So really the base unit and the detector modules are going to be able to fulfill majority of the applications that are out there, just with the technology that comes from the standard components of the system. But you can see how they all snap into place, which you don't even need a screwdriver for anything other than wiring connections. So it makes it very simple. Okay, so we'll talk about, in our current generation, we have 3 products available: ProSense, ProSense Net, TopSense. Next generation, same concept. So we have the 30, 50, 70, which personally I like referencing the numbers better than our current model numbers. But the nice thing is the concepts and the applications are going to be similar. So we can reference the 30 and the ProSense are about the same. ProSense Net and 50 are about the same. And then TopSense and 70 are about the same. And here are some of the specifications. So I like to say that the application drives which one of our models you're going to choose. So it's not like you're going to have to go through an evaluation every time you have an application of like, oh, which product am I going to use? You can think of the 30 being the one that would replace, like I mentioned earlier, the spot type detector application. So one that's booming right now is the tops of elevator shafts. So they no longer want a spot detector at the top of the elevator shaft in a number of states. The Rex 30 is a good solution for that. It's low cost. It has the 2 alarm levels. It covers way more coverage than you would need for that type of application, but it really is the best for that, for the duct detectors, for the churches, for the atriums, for the gymnasiums, places that have high ceilings, and you're never going to be able to service if you put spot detectors up there. The Rex 30 is a great solution for those types of applications. Currently, we would be selling the ProSense in those applications. The 50 is what we typically are recommending for like the cold storage, for the, like if there's some type of warehousing, you would move up from the 30 to the 50 if you need more alarm levels, if you need larger coverage areas. So you can see too, the number of sampling points per unit has gone up dramatically. So we used to only have 24 sampling points available on our current generation in any of our 3 products. Now we'll be able to go from 12 to 54 to 84, depending on the product that you choose. So sometimes, the coverage area that you're trying to protect is also going to be what drives you to one of these products. And then the 70 is definitely designed for the data center, battery storage, those types of applications. Like I mentioned earlier, this is the first product that we've had with 4 alarm levels. So we'll be able to meet those specifications or those applications where 4 is truly needed. You will see our pipe lengths have increased dramatically as well. In our current generation, 400 to 500 feet was the maximum run you could do. Now we're up to almost 1,000 feet with the 70. And with the 84 holes, we can cover a very large area with just one of these detectors. And I mentioned doing the U-shaped pipe networks so that this product could cover a 4-pipe configuration. There is a lot of flexibility in how you can design these pipe networks. So, the U-shape's just one of them. And one of the benefits of aspirating smoke detection in general is the flexibility that comes along with how you can design your pipe network. So, and then you can see, currently on our top sense, that is where we have our bar graph. That will remain the same with the 70. We have offered Wi-Fi capabilities on our 50 product. So if it's a type of application where Wi-Fi would be beneficial, we would recommend the 50. The reason why there's no Wi-Fi capabilities on the 70 is because for the data center applications, typically the data centers don't want to have any Wi-Fi, anything on board, because that could be a security risk. So we could offer the Wi-Fi on the 70 that is available in other regions around the world. However, at this time, we feel like to make it very clear to the data center market, this is a product that would be good for your applications. We have left the Wi-Fi off. I don't know how much need there is for the Wi-Fi, but we have the options for this product line to evolve as the market may evolve, to make changes like the bar graph or the Wi-Fi, adding it to some of the other portfolio that it might not have it right now. Okay, so this slide kind of gives an overview on where you would use each of the products. So there is, some gray area where you could go up or down depending on what the application is. But typically, if you want to keep in mind, like the 30 is more with 2 alarm levels, is more for the spot type replacement or duct detector replacement. 50s, as you see, like the deep freeze areas. One of the reasons why we recommend the 50 in the deep freeze over the 70 is the 70 does have the more advanced display. And typically in the deep freeze areas, the display doesn't really matter because not a lot of people are looking at it from inside the deep freeze. So that's why the 50 is a good solution. It's fine with the display that's on the front. High bay warehouses is a very growing market in the European world. We haven't seen it as much here, but we're starting to see a little bit more of it. So that's a good solution for that product. As I mentioned, the IT and data centers, definitely the 70 is what we're going to recommend a majority of the time. I will say all of our products, current generation and the new generation, are built for industrial applications. So you don't need a specific industrial product to work well in dirty, dusty environments. The dirty, dusty environments are a very typical application throughout Europe. So we know that these products can withstand the dirt and dust that exists in areas like recycling plants or any place else that has high levels of dust. So you don't have to worry about, ordering anything special enclosures, special filters. This product is robust enough to handle those more challenging environments. And then museums, archives, that kind of depends on the size and what you need the product to do. They're listing it as a 70, but I would think in a lot of cases, the 50 probably would work just fine in those applications. So you can see, one of the things that I like to point out about all these different applications is in this market, we're still really using aspirating smoke detection in data centers and IT. That still drives majority of the business. Elevators is definitely a growing market, but there are plenty of applications where spot detectors are installed today, and they really are not the best solution. Aspirating smoke detection is not going to take over spot detection by any means, but in high ceiling applications or even like an atrium or spaces like that, where you could install spot detectors, but they're going to be very difficult to service. And, due to stratification, is the smoke ever going to get all the way up to the top? I think companies should feel more comfortable that these products could be an alternative in certain applications. And I think the fact that these are simpler to install and they're simpler to service makes them a better option than maybe other products on the market. And that there is not a significant investment in training needed to be able to design, install, and service these detectors. Okay, so we have 2 connectivity tools available. One we've had out for ever, I think, Pipe Express Plus. That is our planning and design software. So first of all, I'll say both of these softwares are free. And we do offer training on them through webinars. I like to think the first step in the process is designing your system in PipeXpress Plus. It is a very simple tool to use. Like, it's a wizard-based program, so it kind of walks you through questions about the application, about the project, and then it will generate a pipe network. But then once you have that pipe network, you can manipulate it any way you need to, or you can skip all the questions and just go and design the network or the pipe network yourself. What's new is our Service Express software. So as I mentioned, we used to configure our detectors through dip switches on the side of our detector module. Now what we will do is PipeXpress Plus will create a file based on the pipe network that you've designed. That file gets transferred into Service Express, and then Service Express uploads it to the detector. And that's how you set the parameters of the detector. Service Express is relatively new to me. I have seen some demos, but it looks, again, very easy to use. Like, if you just read the text on the screen, you can figure out how to walk your way through the setup, and then changing any parameters is very simple. So we will be doing webinar trainings on those specifically. So more to come on those. Those have been designed, but they haven't been released yet. So we're hoping by the end of July, both will be released. So if there is anyone who's interested in PipeXpress Plus, you could either contact James or myself, and I will be happy to send you the link to be able to download the software when it's available. But unlike other, especially design software, this design software, for anyone who's used maybe Aspire or anything like that, usually if we do a training, it doesn't take more than 20 minutes because it's so intuitive. So the PipeXpress Plus, this is what the screen where you would design the pipe network, what it looks like. And you can see the icons on the left. You can just drop into place. The icons at the top will allow you to shift and move the pipe network around. You can do two systems in one design file. So this is where you would add like capillary tubing if you needed it, or you need a Y, or you need, we do typically recommend putting in a 3-way ball valve. You could put that in here. So if you needed to add length to the system, if you want to add a test port at the end, those kind of things can all be done at the screen. If you make any changes at the screen, then you push the green button at the top that looks like a calculator, and it recalculates to make sure that what you've done to the pipe network will work with the detector that you've chosen. So if you've currently used our PipeXpress Plus, it's not changing in the way you use it. What will be changing in the next version that's coming out is the addition of the new detectors being listed. Right now, it just has our current generation detectors as options. And then Service Express, as I mentioned, so this is like the homepage. It gives you the options of starting a new project, continuing without a project, commissioning of a standard project. So this gives you like the options of where to start. And then depending on what you choose, then it will give you further screens to add information, and then ultimately the output of the file to upload into your detector. So we try to make all of our software is very intuitive and very easy to use. All right, so as we mentioned from the beginning, the systems are modular. So you start with your basic device, either the 30, the 50, or the 70, and then you make the decision, do I need one detector module or two detector modules? I will say from a detector module standpoint, there is one detector module that's for the 30, there's one for the 50, and there's one for the 70. So you do have to order the correct detector module by the unit the base unit that you're installing. So there are some add-on modules that will be available, like the relays, and then in the future we'll be adding in the connectivity points for partners like Potter. And then we do have the filter available. You do see the 3-way ball valve. So if you've done any projects with us currently, you know that we typically recommend putting in a 3-way ball valve above the filter, just to make it's not required in any way for the operation of our detectors, but we do feel it's an easy way to help purge the pipe network and clean it out. And then it also gives you a point to enter smoke to do testing on the detector. Um, Obviously, it doesn't give you any transport times, not that kind of testing, but you could enter smoke there and just make sure that the detector, activates as would be expected when smoke enters. And then our digital tools. So our Pipe Express Plus remains our design tool with our new Service Express as our new tool to program. So I do like to mention, so retrofit. So there obviously are a lot of aspirating smoke detectors that have been currently installed over the last 20 years. And when it comes to the concept of designing a pipe network, that concept's the same no matter who the manufacturer of the ASD is. So it's pipe network with holes throughout the facility to, allow the smoke to come in, and then it gets evaluated by the detector. So depending on how the pipe network has been designed, there are plenty of applications where you could take one brand of product off the wall and install another ASD unit in its place. So I would say if you know of systems that are out there that the detectors are not working correctly, you've had service issues, you've had to do firmware updates over and over, I would say consider us. We can do a quick design. If you have a calculator, or if you have the pipe layout available to you in any format, like how many feet is it, how many holes, what are the hole sizes, makes it very easy for us to input that information into Pipe Express Plus. If we have to do estimates, we can do that as well. But in a lot of cases, you can substitute our products for other products that are currently in the market. Because we are lower current draw, if there are power supplies already existing, typically the power supply is going to work just fine for us because we draw significantly less power. Another thing that's different, I forgot to mention, in our current product line, because it was designed for the European market, you always need these adapters to go from our base units and our filters to the pipe because they were not designed for 3/4 inch pipes. Now the pipe inlets or the filter inlets are designed for either 25 millimeter or 3/4 inch pipes. So no more adapters, which is good because it's not an expensive part, but if you don't have those parts, you can't connect the pipes to our current units. So it does make it a little bit easier than the product offering we currently have. So I would just say, the retrofit capabilities are there for these products. Really, if a system was designed prior to UL7, no matter if you're replacing it with the same brand of ASD or not, you are supposed to recalculate to make sure the pipe network will meet the UL standards. So if you're going to do the recalculation anyway, it's worth it to maybe consider another brand that may be easier to service or more readily available, or there's a lot of benefits to our products. Okay, I did want to just touch briefly on our current product offering, because if for some reason you need a product tomorrow or in the next few weeks, we don't have the new product available because it's not ready to ship till sometime in October. I did want to at least let you know what is currently available. So, the three products that are on the screen now are the three products we currently have in our portfolio. You can see by the front display, you can tell which product you have because each front display is a little different. What isn't changing is we are still simple to design, simple to install, and simple to service. So that's true whether you're using the existing product line or the next product line. So at the bottom there, you can see what the current detector module looks like. Again, we are modular in our design. I didn't include a picture of the inside of these detectors. The two detector modules reside at the top. You would have to choose, do you need medium sensitivity or high sensitivity, depending on your application. As we talked about Logic Sense, Logic Sense is also built in these, so they also do well compared to other products as far as reducing false alarms. We do have drift compensation. So the technology it's definitely evolved, and we've taken advantage of new technologies because these products are over 10 years old, but it's not a significant shift. These products are very consistent, they're very reliable, and they just are very proven in the market because they've been out for well over 10 years. As I mentioned, there's two. Well, we did get rid of the salad version because we weren't selling a lot of them, but we do have the standard and freezer available in these. Um, if you look, so our temperature range has shifted a little with the new product. So this product goes down to negative 40 degrees Fahrenheit, and then the new product only goes to negative 26. The feedback from the cold storage industry was they typically don't need something to go down to negative 40. So the fact that our new product is listed to negative 26 should meet all applications, according to our cold storage partners. These products, you do not need a software. Sorry, James. These products, you don't need a software to configure or initialize. Like I said, that's done through the dip switches. So if you're working with these products, don't worry about Service Express. We still are offering webinar trainings on how to do design on these products, and we can do installation and commissioning training as well. All of our trainings done by webinars. Right now, we're just scheduling them as needed. So if you have an application and you're going to put it in the next couple months, we'll make sure we get a webinar scheduled. We do want to train everyone before they go out and try to put these in, just so you have a positive experience in how to put them in. You could probably figure it out if you read the install manual, but not everyone reads the install manuals. And we've always said, as long as we've been in this market, you will not need to ever do firmware updates on this product offering or the next. The product, our firmware is built into the product, so there's no way to update it. One less service call. Okay, with that, any questions, comments, feedback?
I haven't seen anything so far, but I think the one thing I want to highlight here again, just coming from my side of the fence on the fire alarm side, is a little bit of the conversation that you and I had before the webinar started, which is there's this myth around the industry that this product line, the old product line or the new, isn't robust enough for certain applications, primarily being data centers. And I think you had a very good response to that, Kate. Would you like to share your response?
That was like an hour ago. What did I say? No, we do have, like, when people say, "Oh, it doesn't do everything the competitor does." I think the industry as a whole has been used to doing things a certain way because it's been owned by one brand doing it one certain way. We can accomplish pretty much everything that they can accomplish. We may just do it differently. So it's more understanding what your customers want out of the product. And we can explain to you, okay, we might get there a different way and it might look a little different, but it probably is going to cost less, to be honest. That just, if you go in knowing this product can do everything that the industry needs it to do, you're going to find that that's true. That's a true statement. And that, when a brand has been in the market for 20 plus years, and that's, who built basically the industry around these types of products, of course, that's going to be the industry standard that everyone needs to meet. So I will say, without a doubt, if you look at this next generation product, I don't think you're going to find any gaps on something the competitor can do that we can't do.
I'm going to be totally honest. I liked your answer when I asked the question earlier, which was what you said specifically was, show me what our stuff can't do. Show me where we're lacking. I'm a little bit of a sarcastic person, so I kind of like the sarcastic answer, right? You've got a couple more slides here that I think touch on this. Did you want to go through those slides while we still have some time?
Sure. I thought I'd see if there was any product questions, and then we can talk a little bit about application. But yeah,
Okay,
there's no product questions. Let's go into the next.
Well, we can pause. That's a good thought. We can pause here for a second. Again, if anybody has any questions, please type them in the chat box. That's what Kate is here for, to answer any questions that you may have. Though the presentation was incredibly thorough, I think you touched on everything. But if anybody has any questions, go ahead and type them in the box.
Yeah, the next couple slides will be around why these products are good for the data center market and good for the cold storage market.
Which I think are two very important business spaces to talk about, primarily data centers.
Mhm.
One of the benefits that Kate and I have that a lot of our customers might not have is that at the manufacturing level, we get to see trends before they're trends, really. And one of the conversations that we had was, energy storage has been very good to the fire alarm market. However, data centers are going to be the next decade, right? As we move into the 2030s, data centers are going to be a big part of the business space that we operate in. So becoming comfortable with the kind of technologies that we're going to see in those spaces, I think is very, very important. And I think it goes without saying that aspirating smoke detector technology is going to play a major role in those data centers. Of course, they play a big role in cold storage as well. So I'd say probably two of the bigger applications that we see this detection technology used in. So
Yep. Yeah, so if you look at where have ASD products been sold for the last 20 years, the majority of them have gone into data centers. So why data center? Why do data centers care about aspirating smoke detection? Why do they use them? And really it's because data centers cannot afford for there to be a fire. And they house a lot of equipment that could start on fire. So the fact that their core structure is around dense electrical equipment, the likelihood of a fire is pretty great. And they can't, your Facebook or your Amazon or your Google or any of these other companies, can they afford to have downtime if some of their servers go out? And they can't. So that's what made them invest in aspirating smoke detection from the beginning, was the early detection that it could bring and this high sensitivity. The earlier a data center can find out that something's happening, the quicker they can address it, the quicker that they can respond, the quicker that they can get it under control so that it doesn't evolve into something that's bigger. And aspirating smoke detection gives them that early warning. And when I first had heard about aspirating smoke detection, I don't know, like 18 years ago or whatever it might have been, someone described it to me as the smoke detector knows that there's a fire before the fire started. And at the time, I was like, how could that even be? At the time I sold spot detectors, I was like, how could it know that there's a fire? Well, we were in a banquet room and they had a unit set up and someone was cooking in the corner of the banquet room and you could see the display of the aspirating smoke detector, the LEDs start to light up because the particles of combustion that were going into the air from the cooking were making, were being drawn in, and it could recognize now that wasn't a fire, but they knew there was the particles of combustion in the air enough to identify them. So that's what these detectors give data centers. And, it's been long written into all their specifications that these are the types of detectors that shall be used. Now, it depends on the data center customer on how they want to use it and what they want it to do. But I can tell you, we just launched these products, and I was telling James this before we started also. We were at the data center show, the NFPA show, and my goal was to bring people who I knew work in the data center space or some of the data center end users or the data center engineering companies over to the booth to look at the new products to say, okay, tell me what this does. Like, is there anything this won't do that you need it to do? And every conversation we had, like, people agreed, no, this product does everything we need it to do. So I do feel like, from an early detection, we have that. We're as sensitive as anyone else on the market. Now with our longer pipe runs, we can, in the increased number of holes, we can cover much larger areas than, I don't know about everyone on the market. I can't say I'm an expert in all the aspirating smoke detectors that are available, but I do have to believe that with the number of holes and the pipe run lengths that we probably can cover a larger area than almost anyone else in the market. So that does make a difference. If you've ever seen these data centers, their core buildings are millions of square feet. So the fewer detectors you need to cover that area, that makes a difference to them. It's, less upfront cost as far as the number of detectors that need to be installed, but they also recognize, because all these data centers have had aspirating smoke detection products for well over 10, 15, 20 years now, they know that there's a cost that goes along with servicing these units. So it's not just the upfront cost of putting them in, but they don't want products that are going to be costly to service throughout the life of the product. So that's, things that the data center companies themselves are concerned about. That's what their engineering partners are now concerned about. So they're looking at who can provide a really good solution going in, but also whose solution is going to be easy to manage over the next 10 or 15 years that these products are going to be installed. So why aspirating smoke detection in these applications? As I mentioned, probably the number one thing is the early warning that you get. If the detector starts to see that there's anything in the air, the warning that you get, you can definitely, and that's one of the reasons, there's ways we could configure our pipe networks to give you, obviously you're not going to know the hole that the smoke came through, but depending on how you configure the pipe networks, you'll know which pipe network it came from, which narrows down in a very large facility where you need to go check to see where the issue may exist. So it gives you very early warnings, so you're knowing about something happening as soon as it starts to happen. And then you can pinpoint to some degree where you need to go to take action. Also, in the ways that the data centers have been built over the years, they tend to have very high, or not very, but high airflow conditions, which would not be ideal environments for spot detectors. So the high airflows the high airflow conditions in most buildings are not going to have an impact on the ASD units, because they are active detectors. They are constantly bringing the air in themselves to evaluate. And as I mentioned, there's a lot of flexibility in how you design the pipe network. So depending on the needs and the way the data centers themselves are designed, we can be flexible in how we design the pipe networks to provide the best protection available, and make it easy to service. You want to put the detectors someplace that they're going to be easy to get to, so that when you do need to service them, you're not having to hire lifts or anything else to get to the detectors. You want to make it easy to reach. And now the NFPA 75 and 76 codes provide the guidance on how these detectors are going to be installed in data centers specifically. We can meet all of the code requirements as far as specifications that you typically see in the data center space. I would say this is still driving 70% of the aspirating smoke detection business. That's just my own experience. I mean, I have worked in fire protection for almost 30 years, and I've sold 3 different brands of aspirating smoke detectors at this point. So I've been around these types of products for a while, and I have to say, if you can't tell, very excited about the new products that we have to launch, because I think they're good for the contractors putting them in from an ease of installation, but I also believe they bring more peace of mind for the end users and less headaches, and there's less things to service on our detectors, so there's going to be a less of a cost throughout the life of the product for our solution. Okay, so data centers are kind of a natural fit for the products. I feel like cold storage, I don't know, maybe because it's cold, people think that fires don't happen. But I can tell you, I'm newer to the cold storage market when it comes to selling these products, because where I came from, we didn't have the best solution. But now with our products at Wagner, we do have a very good solution. And I can tell you, fires happen all the time in cold storage, and it is a point of contention for cold storage companies to know about fire protection, to know what the best solutions are out there. They do need to manage this risk that they have. Cold storage facilities are not as big as data centers, but they build them, it's hundreds of thousands of square feet. And for the types of equipment that run these cold storage facilities, I don't know much about that, but I know that they have fires. So there's something about the way they run that there is a high chance of fire. And in the cold storage world, a lot of it's third party warehousing. So they're warehousing someone else's inventory. So they can't afford to have an incident and lose the inventory of their customers. So that would not be good for their business and continuing business continuity. So that's why fire detection matters so much to the cold storage. They are also, they tend to be very high, like they build them very tall. And so again, spot detection is not going to really be a great solution, or, you can't do beam detection. A lot of these companies have considered linear heat over the years. I think that's a common product for these types of applications. However, we're hearing more and more that, due to how they operate the facilities, the linear heat, there's a lot of times where they get damaged, so they're not working correctly, and then having to service them. And they just see that there's a lot less service that comes along with the ASD units. The pipes are a little bit more sturdy than the wiring that goes with linear heat. So I can say we are getting calls every week about new opportunities. So within the cold storage space. So I would say if you're not doing cold storage, there is a lot of growth in this business as well. Again, we can do the early detection. They don't normally set it as sensitive for the cold storage as you would for a data center. However, you are still getting that early detection so that they can react before an incident takes place. And it really is driven by the need for business continuity. They can't have sprinklers going off in deep freeze warehouses. They can't they can't have anything happen that's going to damage that inventory within the cold storage facility. And why are we a good solution over other ASD? As I mentioned, just being able to put the detectors in the cold storage space itself makes a big difference. Obviously, it's a little chilly when you go in to service it. However, you're not dealing with constant condensation issues. The way we can, you're only going into service it hopefully once a year. So, and they typically do have individuals that are able to address the people accordingly that need to go in and do the servicing, because we do also have other types of systems that we sell into these types of facilities. So we actually, not me personally, but within the Wagner organization, have a lot of experience in working in these cold storage environments. The people, not just the detectors. Again, we have flexibility in how we can design our pipe networks. And in this case, with the very high ceilings, it's not uncommon to have 40 or 60 foot high ceilings. Being able to have flexibility on where you mount these detectors makes a big difference to the people who are going to have to service them. Our sensitivity levels can be adjusted to meet whatever sensitivity they want, because we can go from a standard sensitivity all the way to the high sensitivity. And it gives you that early smoke detection warnings way before, obviously it's going to give you much earlier warning than linear heat, depending on how your sensitivity is set. So there's a lot of flexibility, and I think, and the early warning gives us a really good solution for the cold storage. And if this is a market that you want to work in, we're happy to share some of the expertise that we have in how to best do the designs, and the best way to work with these customers. And they are being built all over the country. So sorry. They are being built all over the country. So it's not a regional thing. We're seeing opportunities all across the United States.
For more information about Potter products, please visit our website at pottersignal.com. To access additional training resources, check out our online training portal at academy.pottersignal.com. Stay connected with us on social media for the latest updates and news.